the format for today is that each of the speakers will speak for no more than 15 minutes, and then we have a question and discussion from everyone. So thank you all very much for coming. So we like to talk about subjects in a number of different ways between Hexham Debates and Tynedale Transformed. Hexham Debates is in a position to do a really quite overarching, sometimes international perspective on issues. Sometimes it's local, but it's never more local than regional, but quite often it's a much bigger view. And so what we like to do on the ground is to drill down to the much more regional, local and individual. And we hope that at the end of today you will have learned something or had an idea about whatever topic it is. Obviously it's migration today. And then it's about changing how communities work and think about themselves as well. So that's our ambition. So migration, we decided to talk migration, what does it mean? Because actually migration, the whole notion of migration has become a political football across the world. And we thought this was an opportunity to talk about what it means. What does migration mean? So this is obviously the movement of people, something that we do all the time. But quite often it's response to war or famine or poverty or family or adventuring. It goes back as long as, when we first existed, we migrated. So the notion of migration is not new. But what happens, as far I believe has happened recently, is that for political reasons, it has become a sort of derogatory term. Migrants are demonised. And what it does is, first of all, to mask the nature of migration. So there's migration all the time. Our societies are dependent on it. There's a particular type of migration that has become demonised. And I think we need to unpick it. What does that mean economically? What does it mean socially? What does it mean in terms of the individual? So it's a given that migration has always happened and it always will do. So my great-grandfather migrated from Ireland for economic reasons. And he just came and, lived, and if he hadn't done that, I wouldn't be here, I'd be somewhere else, if at all. My aunts and uncles were £10 poms, so they get £10 to go to Australia. One was managed migration, which was the £10 poms, and the other was a response to moving into the next door country because things were so bad at home. So it's happened all the time, and I think that we need to talk about what it means. We're not coming up with any overarching solutions to it. It's just unpicking it because it has become a distorted discussion. So the format, as I've said, is the three speakers. So our speakers are Sarah Greaves, Zara Galeva, and Janet Cresswell. So Sarah's going to start us off. So Sarah was born and bred in Newcastle, has lived and worked in the area since returning to Northumberland in 2004 after living in Derbyshire. Sarah was actually part of the group that set up I think that was a Freudian slip, the Hexham Debates in 2007. So well done. Sarah has always wanted to work with refugees and asylum seekers and started volunteering for the Northumberland County Sanctuary. So sorry, got muddled up there. And when she retires as an art therapist. She now leads the Tuesday drop-in sessions and the art group, and has become a member of the board and a trustee. So please. Thank you.
I'm not sure about using a microphone. So, and also it just feels a bit weird to be on this side rather than that side. So, Northumberland County of Sanctuary, which we call NCOS for short, it's a very small charity that was started up in 2016 by a small, very committed group of passionate, caring people, local people who wanted to make asylum seekers welcome in the area, because there had been none in Northumberland until then. And actually, some of them, we've got Wendy here, who was one of the founder members and is still very active and very involved in keeping us going. But it's run entirely by volunteers. There's no paid staff. We're reliant on donations and grants. So since the charity was started in 2016, things have changed. The pressure's grown because there are more people coming into Northumberland because of the war in Ukraine and the numbers arriving on small boats. And I have this feeling of people moving north. You know, the migration is moving north, so we have people from Syria, Afghanistan, Middle East, Africa, driven by war mainly, persecution, climate change, famine, and often people come, they want to help their families back home, so they are also driven by the positive driver of just wanting to make a positive change to their own lives and their families' lives. So our focus has always been on welcoming people, just that simple welcoming face, being there, saying to somebody, you know, you're really welcome, and we provide food, refreshments at our drop-ins, so people come and have a cup of tea. But it is that friendly face, that human contact, that everything's based on that. And we've also got increasingly good working relationships with Northumberland County Council, with NEARS, the housing team, the resettlement team, the Red Cross. Zara volunteers for the Red Cross, and we've got very good working relationship with the Red Cross generally. We couldn't manage without them. And as the numbers coming to the drop-in has grown, and the numbers coming to Ashington, Blythe and Bedlington has grown, the numbers of support services coming to the drop-ins and liaising with us has grown as well, which feels fantastically positive. So there's a lot of really good things going on. So we don't provide legal advice. The charity, the Red Cross does. So Zara can give legal advice, but we help with practical things like registering with the GP, getting dental appointments, helping people get access to schools. So always just linking up with all the general services that are in the community. And we've also got really positive links with other charities in the area, like the Northumberland Volunteering Association, mental health charity, the Bothy, Newcastle United for Sanctuary is running fantastically successful football sessions, which are growing. More and more men, I've just thought it is men getting involved with that. But we miss a lot of people. We've got 332 people, I think, signed up as members. But my impression, Zara will tell me if this is true, is that the people that come to the drop-ins that we've got ongoing relationships with are people who are very committed to integrating, who want to be part of the community, or who need help. And I know there's a lot of people out in the community that we're not reaching, although we try. And we also try to provide really nice social activities that are good for people's mental well-being. So it's not all about trauma and difficulty and problems. We're trying to provide a place where people can get together, play games together, do art activities. We've got a games night, football. We have the football team, the art group, which has just had a very successful exhibition. So there's lots of really lovely things going on, and it can feel like at the drop-ins, it can feel so calm and happy and positive. It's got just a lovely sort of feeling to it. So that's the positive side. But people coming, they've often obviously they have experienced like real trauma. If people don't come, people don't make that journey for nothing. They don't come to, you know, be on benefits. It is really dangerous, and people die. And people have told me about somebody had a baby a week after arriving on a boat. It's a terrifying journey, and so the drop-in can be very busy with new people arriving and lots of people coming with their difficulties. It's been really interesting, the change in government. So it was fantastic when they dropped the Rwanda policy, because that was causing a huge amount of anxiety. So that was great, and the government seemed to deal with the riots really well last year. That was really good. There wasn't many problems locally. Claims are definitely being processed more quickly, and more people are being given leave to remain. People in Ashington, I have fallen in love with Ashington. People are so kind, so friendly, and it's not a rich community, and people are so kind and generous. But the hostile rhetoric which the government is using, our Labour government is using, is really harmful and fuels resentment, and that, I think, that is causing increasing problems in the community. It would be really nice to hear the government welcoming these young, courageous, resourceful people who want to work into Britain, rather than, as Penny says, sort of demonising people as, migrants have become it's become almost a term of abuse. The system is horribly inhumane and wasteful of financial and human resources. So people often have their first application rejected, and then they wait years for their appeal to be heard, and then half of the appeals are getting through anyway. So that people are wasting years of their lives. Loads of money is wasted on that, keeping people in expensive hotels. And it has a huge impact on people's mental health, because they can just waste years of their lives. And there also seems to be no humanity in the system of just understanding that people become settled in their communities, they make friends, they make relationships. So people can just suddenly be moved arbitrarily with no consideration given to where the children are at school or where people are getting their support from. And there's also just bureaucratic mistakes where there's just a mistake in a bit of paperwork, and suddenly people are just made homeless, evicted, or have to move. And it's just a senseless system. It's just tottering, unwieldy, and it does need reforming. And a big change locally is that Northumberland County Council has changed its policy on housing people when they get leave to remain. So people used to have to be automatically entitled to a home. That's not happening now. They're being people are having to be assessed on grounds of need and often referred to the homeless team. We're coming across more and more people experiencing homelessness. So again, that's an increasing pressure on us. We can't always help people. We just haven't got the resources to help people. So that's really difficult. Meantime, private companies are making a massive profit out of providing often substandard accommodation, and so that's me over. But all I want to say is that I'm meeting all these amazing people from all over the world, so it's a huge privilege for me. But how many people say how they love the UK, and they're not saying they love the UK because of the benefit system, they're saying they love the UK because people are really kind. I feel really proud to be British now. I've gone all patriotic. That's me.
Thank you so much. That was a great start to our conversation. So now I'd like to introduce Zara Galeva, who's originally from Russia and is a former asylum seeker with 7 years of lived experience in the UK asylum system. She was recently granted leave to remain and has 2 children with her, and is actively volunteering with NCOS and Red Cross, supporting people seeking asylum and refugees. Her work focuses on advocacy and practical support. So, thank you.
Hello. After Sarah's speech, there's nothing left for me to say. But I'll try. Yes, I'm from Russia, and I came here 7 years ago to seek asylum. I'll talk about this site first, like why asylum seekers are coming to this country. We are coming here to be safe. Also, when I came here, I came with tourist visa as well. But I was told at the Home Office, well, I didn't cross the board, on the boat. I got a tourist visa to come here, and the first hours when I arrived in London, I went to Home Office to seek asylum. So I didn't go for holiday, I didn't use it as a tourist. So I came here with a particular reason, and I went to the Home Office and gave all my documents, my tickets, everything. But they said, you broke the rule, you lied because you said you were going there as a tourist. But I said, if I would say at the visa center, I'm going there to seek asylum, would I get a visa? So I have to break that rule anyways, it doesn't matter, even if you go cross the board on the boat, you get a visa, anyways, you break the rule. There's no kind of office, for example, at the border, you can go and say, I can't stay in this country, can you help me to get across the board so I will be safe there? There's no such thing. So anyway, it doesn't matter which way. I came with visa, with my passport on the plane. I break the same rule that those people are breaking, same thing. But why people are coming here? There are some reasons people are not safe in their country. It's for their life and safety, and some people some people do come here for economic reason. Because they don't have job, they don't have enough money to raise their children in their country. Like some countries, like in some African countries, we cannot blame a woman who never had chance to go to school, who never had chance to have proper life, and she became a mother of children, and she knows her children are going to have the same life if I won't take them out here, because the government is corrupted. I never will be able to get enough money to let them go to school, and they will have chance to have better life than I had. So then she make a decision. I cannot change my government, my country, but I can give my 2 children, 3 children, better life than I have. And she comes here not because somebody is going to kill her in her country, because she wants better life for her children. She brings her children here, and she's happy to work. She's happy to work hard. If in her country would be a job that she could, there's a factory, for example, where she could go and work and earn money and be able to send her children to school and give them whatever they need for a normal development. Oh, I'm sure 100% she would love to stay there because it's her country. She feels comfortable there. Why would she come here where she doesn't know anyone, she doesn't know the country, she doesn't know the language? She has to start everything from scratch, so she has to forget about her own life for her children. So why would she do that if she have choice? Okay? So we cannot blame people who are coming for economic reason as well as those people who come here to save their lives. So to prevent those economic migrants, big countries, powerful countries like America, UK, European countries would be able, if they would want to, would be able to solve this problem on the ground. Like we have lots of big companies making things in China because it's cheap labor there. China is okay now. It's very powerful and has a lot of money. They can look after themselves. Remove those factories to countries, African countries, where they don't have no job. So people, if they have jobs there, they will stay in their country with their families, with their everything they love. So they don't need to forget about their lives, so they can still live their lives and grow their children in their country. They would love it. But they have to make this choice. And the same with me. I came here with my 2 children, not because I didn't have a job. I had a very good job. I had lots of friends, my family, my house. But I had to come here for safety of my children. It's a long story. I'm not going to bother you with that, but it is there. I would never come here. I'm 46 years old. I wouldn't want to come to the country where I can't speak any language. Well, I can't speak any English words. I don't know anyone. I didn't know anything about the UK. It was just lucky chance maybe, because I had someone who was friend of mine who worked at the British visa center, and they said, and I called him and said, I thought he is working at the making European visas. But when I said, can you make me a visa because I have to leave? Can you help me with visa? And he said, we are making only Great Britain visas. I said, right, go on. So that's how I came here. I didn't know anything about the UK, honestly. Only things I would see on the movies, like, Sherlock Holmes and Queen. So that's all I knew. But when I came, when I had to make that very hard decision to move to a different country, and I got this visa, I was prepared to have difficulties, lots of difficulties. I just, in my head, told myself, you're going to go through lots of difficulties because you don't speak English, you don't know anyone there, you don't have enough money to live there. So there will be lots of difficulties. And that's why, because I prepared myself, it was okay. I was going through it until I got to Ashington. In Ashington, I was given a nice house. I met amazing people from NCOS, charity organization supporting that time, very young organization, just started. And when I was welcomed, I thought, is this it? I'm waiting for some more difficulties. Now I'm going to be looked after, my children going to school, everything going to be good. So that was my experience meeting NCOS. And since then, I am with this organization, and this is my family since then. And, sorry. So as soon as I started to speak some English, understand some English, I joined the English classes there. I started to volunteer as well. I wanted to help, I wanted to contribute, and I wanted to give back something, little bit. I will never be able to give everything back, but I thought I'll do my little bit. So since then, I'm working with this organization. I joined the Red Cross as well. Because was going through the process, asylum seeking process. My case was processed 7 years. Because I don't know why. Because there was COVID. Everything was stopped. Then it was forgotten. It went through all this, but all this time. I couldn't make the difference because you can't call home office and say, what's going on? Why you are not processing my case quicker? You can't do that. You have to be patient and just wait. But because I have 2 children to look after, I couldn't afford to be depressed and put down myself. I had to be strong and helping others. And seeing that positive outcome of our job helped me as well. It's not just I'm giving, I'm taking the same back to myself, for myself. And we are here now. I finally got leave to remain, and for the first week of my being granted, I applied for about 50 jobs and going through the job interviews now. So I thought, I'm going to be nervous today, but after my 1 hour job interview yesterday, this is much better. So what else? And the immigration system at the moment is, it's getting slightly better recently, to be honest, because they are processing cases quicker. Not always fair, I mean, like, it could be sometimes exactly the same cases have different decision. Like, I don't know how it happens, and people think, well, my friend has exactly the same reason to come here. He got leave to remain, I was refused. Why? I don't know what to say. And also, there's not kind of structure. It's just people feel it's so unfair and it put them down, they are depressed, and they don't know what to do. And another big, huge problem is lack of legal support. People who come here with no English, with no experience of being here, in few months of their application for asylum, if they got refused, but they are given chance to appeal. But they don't know how to do it, and there's no legal aid support available for them. And they don't know what to do without organizations like refugees. We are very close to a refugee center, Northeast Refugee Center in Newcastle. They're doing an amazing job as well. For people who got their application rejected and don't have legal representations, they go there to get help with the appeal. So it's something, but unfortunately they can't represent them through all the way, but at least this is something. And people just get lost, they don't know what to do. And also, as Sarah mentioned earlier, when something happens, if their case is rejected especially, and they have to do something like appeal or submit fresh evidences, and there's no time for them to realize what to do, to find someone who will help them with this, and their financial support stopped, and they're kicked out from their houses, and where are those people supposed to go? Luckily, this doesn't happen with children or with family with children, but those single men, we say they are dangerous. All these people coming here is dangerous, and they are dangerous. Well, they will be dangerous if they are hungry, they have nowhere to go, and they don't know what to do, and they are very disappointed. They might become dangerous. So we need to help them to go through the process fairly, so they will feel the support, and if eventually at the end of this process, there's no chance for them to stay here, okay, it happens as well, then we can't just kick them out at the street so they can go and rob someone, because they are hungry now, It's need to be like, okay, you paid for their accommodation for all this process, but why you are kicking them out now? If you keep that support for a little bit longer, until you take them from that house, take them from the detention center or whatever, before you deport them, if there's a reason to deport them, or do something with them. You cannot kick them out and say, go home. They don't have documents, they don't have money, they don't know what to do, and they don't want to, because they want to still stay here. So you can't just kick people out from the houses. You need to make sure, after you're kicking out, where do you think they are going? Are you tracking them? Do you know what they are doing after that? So it needs to be like, you need to follow that process. If you have started that, my asylum way was, as I said, 7 years. And 7 years, all the 7 years, I didn't have right to work. I could work and look after my children, but the government paid all this ceremony, I don't want to count it, it's awful, it scares me, how much they paid for me and for my two children. And all these years, well, at least maybe first year or two, maybe I wouldn't be able to do that. But 6 years, 5 years, imagine how much money is it? 2-bedroom house, bills, school, NHS. Luckily, we're quite healthy family, didn't use it much. So all that money would be used better than it was last time. And when we were at the parliament, went with Asylum Matters organized lobby to the parliament to talk about the migration system, and we were there, and Angela Eagle was sitting there and saying, and I said, we don't give asylum seekers right to work, but if I would have that right to work at least 5 years ago, you would save loads of money and would be able to give that money to more vulnerable people. I don't want to call myself vulnerable. I am not vulnerable. I can look after myself, just let me do that, you know? And there are many, many people like me. So that's what we need to achieve. That's what we need to think. We don't need to be scared of asylum seekers. They're not coming here to take British people jobs. Well, we are coming here because we don't have any other choice. I would love to be in my country and do things I was doing all my life. I didn't choose to come here, when I was 40 years old, when I was supposed to be successful and doing my job, continuing and promoting and all that stuff. But now I have to start from the scratch. I have to start from, I'm happy to do any job just to avoid benefits. I don't want benefits. I had them for too long a time. I appreciate my independence. And I want to be independent. And I want to teach my children to be independent as well. Learn well, be able to look after yourself and help others. That's the main rules.
Thank you, Zara. That was wonderful. Although, you know, a terrible system that we have, but to hear somebody who's actually been through it and your experience, thank you. So I'd now like to come to Janet Cresswell, who has worked in community development in the voluntary sector for over 25 years. I won't list all the things that you've done, but they are myriad. But she believes passionately in equity, enabling people to achieve their aims, ambitions, and to be and feel a valued member of our society. So 18 months leading an equitable volunteering project across Cumbria for Tully House Museum brought Janet to Carlisle, where she is now the CEO of Multicultural Cumbria. Thank you.
Hello everybody. Really pleased to be here today to talk a little bit about migration. A lot of what I've said has already been said, but I will go through some points anyway. Mankind, as we know, has been migrating across continents since we first walked the earth in search of food, shelter and safety, and not much has changed. So in 2025, mankind still migrates in search of food, shelter and safety as asylum seekers and refugees. People also migrate in search of better living standards and including education and for other economic reasons. Public concern has led recent governments to bring in stricter measures and criteria for people wanting to live, study and work in the UK. Brexit was based on taking control of our borders, whatever that meant to Brexit supporters. As part of the EU, we have strong agreements across Europe around migration, which are being renegotiated now. The Race Equality Foundation's recent report earlier this year highlights that public policy failure has allowed the flourishing of toxic discourses around migration racism, and particularly Islamophobia. The language used in the media and by politicians speaks to our ancient fears as an island nation of being invaded. We are taught in schools about Vikings raiding the south coast, raping, pillaging and burning homes, Sir Walter Raleigh seeing off the Spanish Armada, and the efforts of the Home Guard to keep our shores safe during World War II. It is perhaps ironic that the memory of World War II veterans are invoked in the narrative against migration, when they fought to ensure Europe was free from genocide and the worst kind of dictatorship. In August 2024, the UK experienced some of the worst violent attacks against minoritised ethnic groups. The initial riots were framed by perpetrators and their supporters as a reaction to the tragic murder of 3 young girls in Southport. The relative success of debunking the racist, Islamophobic and often misogynistic narrative and the effects of the criminal justice system in stopping the riots soon saw defenders of the riots changing the narrative and speaking of two-tier policing with racial undertones. Of concern is our government's lack of response in addressing the root causes of the riots, demonstrated by an uncritical response and the far-right agenda. National government labelled the riots as random acts of thuggery, perpetrated by a few bad actors, although there were over 1,200 arrests. Nothing was said about the far-right's weaponisation of the Southport tragedy to spread and justify a racist agenda. In the year that's followed, we have seen the rise of Reform and their pledge to freeze immigration and government plans to stop the boats and smash the gangs, reinforcing in the public consciousness that migration, particularly by irregular routes, is a problem and damaging to UK nationals. Even the recent agreement with France and the one-in, one-out system is viewed with suspicion. Successive government since migrants were welcomed to Britain as what became known as the Windrush generation in the 1940s and 50s, migration policy has appeared fragmented and reactive rather than proactive. In the last 20 years, a tough stance against migration has been a vote winner for politicians, to the detriment of the people coming to this country. Yet migration has many benefits. People come to the UK with new ideas, experiences and energy, driving economic growth and filling skills shortages. We are already a multicultural society. It's in the language we speak, the food we eat, the way we live our lives. Adult migrants are net contributors to our tax and benefit system as they join the UK workforce without being benefit recipients as children using our health and education system. Temporary migrants working in health, care, hospitality, agriculture and other industries spend wages in local economies and contribute to society through taxes and national insurance. Young people often work abroad to gain experience of different cultures and improve their education, broadening their minds. However, I work a lot with asylum seekers, and as has already been said, many are not allowed to work, or they are not allowed to work, for at least the first 12 months of their stay in the UK. The government introduced this policy in 2002 as there was a perceived need to distinguish asylum seekers from economic migrants. This policy means that asylum seekers are forced to live in poverty, often in overcrowded hotels, which is another political hot potato, at taxpayers' expense for a year while their claims are assessed or they are granted refugee status. Other countries have more liberal rules. For example, Ireland allows asylum seekers to work up to 6 months, and in Canada they can work immediately. So various charities, think tanks, business groups and parliamentarians have argued for a more liberal policy. Arguments commonly advanced for allowing asylum seekers to work include lower poverty rates, improved integration, better mental health and higher tax revenues. However, uncontrolled migration does put strain on the recipient countries, particularly on their infrastructure. And in the UK, the demand for housing is often blamed now on migrants, rather than a decades-old policy going right back to right to buy and the demise of building of social houses. Right now, over 100 million people have been forced to flee their homes, according to the UN Refugee Agency. This has more than doubled compared to 10 years ago. 35% of this group are children. When war, regime change and natural disasters strike, the neighbouring countries become the first recipients of refugees. As the world becomes more unstable, economic migrants also become more prevalent. 74% of displaced people are housed in low and middle income countries. And 69% are in neighbouring countries or places close to the country they have fled from because of those ties to a way of life they know. In 2024, the UK received 108,000 asylum applications, which is an 18% rise from the year before. However, we received far fewer applications than many European countries. Germany, for example, had 245,000 applications. Women and children continue to represent a significant proportion of applicants, with 43% of people seeking asylum being in that group, including, quite scarily, 8% who are unaccompanied minors. Withdrawal from the EU brought an end to our membership of the Dublin system. The UK had pushed hard for this protocol as it allowed any EU country to return people to whichever EU country they had left to get here. So for us, most of them went back to France. So ironically, Brexit may have led to the UK being a more preferred destination. So the government changed the rules to make more cases inadmissible and make it harder for families to reunite here. In this way, it has been able to boost the number of rejections and has begun to use the term illegal immigration as part of its messaging. But anyone has the right to claim asylum in another country under the UN Declaration of Human Rights and the Geneva Convention. No one is illegal when they arrive here. The concept of illegals is a trope created by the very people who've changed the rules. There are now no legal routes for the vast majority of asylum seekers, and you cannot claim asylum until you are in the country. Small boats began arriving in 2018 as security tightened at ports, followed by gangs quickly preying on those most vulnerable people. And this creates a very visible image of the UK being invaded, and we become desensitised to the trauma experienced by people so desperate that they are willing to risk their lives coming here. Do you remember the outcry and concern when the picture of a small child washed up on the beach hit our TV screens? And what's the narrative now? So migration is complex and multifaceted, with causes way beyond anything as an individual we can control. But taking action on climate change, petitioning government to provide aid, not just food in response to crisis, but real aid, which creates economic and political stability in the most volatile regions of the world. At a local level, we can also make a difference. Teach our children to safely and effectively challenge myths and disinformation. Stay curious about the world we live in. Be tolerant and compassionate, and practice that ourselves. At Multicultural Cumbria, we are trying to change the narrative. Many people do not understand the difference between asylum seekers and refugees and other migrants. We are using the term forced migrants to reinforce the message that asylum seekers and refugees have not travelled thousands of miles to get to the UK through choice and a desire to take advantage of our benefit system. They are fleeing for their very lives. Like you do in Northumberland with the County of Sanctuary, we run community engagement programmes where residents can meet forced migrants through volunteering work that they do for us, sharing food and exchanging cultural experiences. We use our social media to share positivity around migrants of all types and the descendants of earlier migrants, highlighting contributions to our society. We aim to counter that myth and disinformation that circulates so readily. All it takes is a smile and a friendly word to help make someone feel welcomed. We can all play a part in helping migrants to integrate into our communities.
think that is what I was talking about earlier, an overarching start to a conversation which is incredibly complex. So it's now over to the floor, and Craig is going to be a lovely assistant who runs around with a microphone. So if you put your hands up, and he'll come and give you the mic. Thank you. Oh, and please be succinct because we did start a bit late. Thank you. Any questions or comments?
How serious a problem do you feel the right-wing media are?
Right, we'd like to answer that. We'd like to answer that.
Sorry, the problem of our media is huge. I'm probably getting very cynical because I'm moving on in years, but our media is controlled by people wanting to make a lot of money, and bad news sells newspapers, and it always has. So I think the stories that the mainstream press share are atrocious. It's part of the misinformation that goes around, and once something's in print, people take it as gospel, and it becomes the reason why we shouldn't have migration, the reason why we should all close our doors, pull up the drawbridge and stay safe in our castle. As I think it's said here, when people are desperate, they come here because they're desperate. They don't come here because they want our jobs. They don't come here because they want to cause problems in our communities. They are desperate people, and they get very much misrepresented.
I would just agree.
Yeah.
It's a huge problem.
Thank you.
Thank you. I always think it seems so crazy that people aren't allowed to work when they're perfectly willing to work. Is there any chink of light at the end of the tunnel that the government is working towards allowing people, or that MPs campaigning for it? Because it would just make such a difference, I think. I mean, we sign petitions. I think I've signed 2 this week, but it doesn't seem to sort of make any difference. I mean, is there? I mean, you sort of know a lot more.
The answer is no. Because as I said, when we went to the parliament last year, and when we asked Angela Eagle why there is permission to work for asylum seekers, which is kind of like, when you're giving one thing with one hand and taking it back with the other hand. It's when you stay here and you wait for your decision for 12 months, you can get permission to work, but that permission to work is a shortage occupation list. So, like, if you are a ballet dancer or brain surgery or something like that, you can do that. I can't do that, unfortunately. But even there is permission on that occupation list. There is a job for care workers. But if you are an asylum seeker, care workers, care homes don't want to employ you, because tomorrow you might lose your right to work, because your case might be rejected, and then you will be appealing, and all those things, it will stop. And as I said, when we were at the parliament last year, we asked Angela Eagle why we don't give people right to work so they can look after themselves. They said, we don't want people to come here to work. So migrants will be coming here because they can immediately start working. So there will be more people to come. That was the answer.
My thoughts aren't entirely clear, but
I was thinking it's easy, sometimes you think government policies almost deliberately demonise migrants, and it's dangerous to think there's a coherence, intelligence to this. To what extent do you think this is kind of deliberate, or do you think it's just a product of lining private companies' pockets and, you know, winning elections and that kind of thing? Do you see what I mean? It's easy to think there's a deliberate attempt to make people, you know, policies sometimes contrive to characterise people in a certain way. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Who'd like to answer that?
I could. So, my impression is that it's true, and that this government, I'm so disappointed in this government, because I think they're just conforming to reform rhetoric, and I think because they want to get those right-wing votes, they're using the same kind of language, and I'm deeply disappointed in the kind of language that they're using, and I think it's deliberate to win votes. That's my opinion. I'd be really interested to hear what other people think.
I agree, because when asylum, when immigration is, asylum seekers are told on the content like border secure, illegal migration, things like that, when local people listen, that they have that negative attitude to it, and to fear, like they're losing control of their country, things like that, and that's why that when local people are against asylum seekers in their community, it's not because they don't like them, they are black, white or red, doesn't matter. It's not about that. It's because of the fear. They think, oh, they are terrorists. Well, when I saying in context like asylum seekers are terrorists, it's border security, all that things, breaking the rules. But we don't see the story behind it, why they are coming here, and they see only the front line. That's why that negative attitude, and it makes much more difficult for people who come here to integrate. They don't feel confident. They feel fear to go out. Even sometimes in Washington, for example, when it's dark, we don't go to the park because there might be some naughty young people there. They might say things. I know the young people say things even to British people. It's fine, but asylum seekers looking different. They don't feel safe to go out and just enjoy it there. And they always, quite often, they come to us to say, oh, they said this, they said that. And there was an incident on Facebook as well. Last week, when somebody just took a picture of Pakistan man sitting on his bench and wrote something about him. Who gave you right to take a picture of me and post me on the Facebook? Well, something like that, and they do it anonymous. They don't put their names there. But police deal with that later. But again, when someone reads that, somebody will believe that story, Those things need to prevent. They need to prevent posting anything anonymously on Facebook as well. It's same thing, I guess. Sorry.
Whether it's a deliberate policy.
Yeah, I'll come into that because asylum seekers are the most law-abiding part of our society. They have to be. They've gone through an awful lot to come here. And so the rhetoric by media around it's not safe to walk down the streets because of migrants in my community is a complete and utter lie, and it is a deliberate attempt, I think. Again, I said earlier, I'm getting cynical in my old age. It's around power and control, and it's very easy to blame the other for the ills of what's in our society, instead of attacking those ills head on, whether it's housing, or it's education, or it's the NHS. they're areas that the government should be fixing their attention on. And instead, it's easy for the government to say, well, it's all their fault and we're going to stop them. And that's a really lazy way of running the country, in my opinion. And I do think it's a deliberate policy.
Hi, there seems to be a perspective that there seems to be a perspective that the problem that we have in the country is with so-called illegal immigration is unique to the UK, and that we're being flooded with illegal immigrants and this narrative. However, we all know that it's a massive problem worldwide, that there are people on the move internationally every single day, and that situation is going to get worse, particularly as the world becomes more, there may be more wars in the future. You know, there's talk about going to war with Russia, and there's more disablement in the Middle East. And not only that, there's the effects of climate change as well. These places that some people are coming from, they can't be inhabited any longer, they just cannot live there. How as a world and how as a country are we going to be able to address that? Because the situation that you're all working with at the moment and doing a remarkable job with is going to get worse. So what are we going to do about it? What can we do? What hope is there? Just to ruin their lives.
It's a small question.
A small question.
That's a question. What hope is there? I like that. I am an eternal optimist, so I think there is hope. And I think just by you people coming here in this room together today to talk about it shows that there is hope. And I think through collective action, we can make a difference. It's like saying so many people now are on the move. 100 million people across the world are on the move. We had something around 40,000 people come here in a boat or two. So what can we do about it? It's a huge question, and I think I sort of alluded to that in what I was saying earlier. And it is about, what Zara was doing about petitioning government, going to Parliament. I would like to think that we can get back to working together with our neighbours in Europe and further afield as well to address some of the reasons why people are having to leave their homes. Because, as Zara totally said, you don't want to leave your home. It's your home, you're born there, you're bred there, you know the traditions, you know the culture. Something is forcing you to do that. And that's the reason why there's so many people on the move, as you quite rightly said. So we need to find a way of humanity coming together with a lot more compassion and use the incredible resources that we've got in terms of not just land and minerals and work, but our brains and AI and technology that's coming along to help solve some of the issues in the world. How do you stop megalomaniacs wanting to run half the world? That's really hard, because that tends to go down the route of war, which then displaces thousands and millions more people. But I do think there's hope for humanity in the end.
I'd like just to have chair's privilege, so I'm taking my chair's hat off. I find it incredible that you can listen to a news bulletin that talks about low productivity, talks about stagnation in the economy, talks about all these things, and then we've got a huge pool of people who have, just because they've come here and have no rights here, doesn't mean that they're highly skilled, highly qualified, competent, able and willing. And I think there has to come a point where the whole narrative changes. Actually, what we're talking about is people on the move. They're not migrants, they're not economic migrants, they're not illegal migrants, they're people on the move. And the minute that we do that, then we have got to reframe it. And we've got to look at working across the world really about where people go, because the West, in inverted commas, has created these problems. And so we have a huge responsibility to actually sort it out and make sure the quality of people's lives is what it ought to be. So I put my hand back on now.
Henry, could we hear from Wendy?
Thank you. I could talk for a lot longer than 15 minutes because I go back, like many of us in this room, to the days when we were all equal. We all had the same rations. We all ate the same food. We were all allowed our tiny little cube of cheese per week. And we liked it. And we thought this is how we're going to go on. We had a society where we shared our health facilities, and it was going to be there, open and equal for everybody. We didn't have to go down the side of the sofa and try and find some money if the children were ill to go to the doctor. It was wonderful. Everything was going to happen. It was beautiful. We were all going to share equally. Nobody needed to have tons more money than anybody else. Unfortunately, the other side of human nature has got in the way, hasn't it? Somebody asked about, very sensibly, about whether we actually, governments have sliced up society. And I believe very strongly that certain past governments very definitely worked on the same principle as the... do you remember John Cleese said, I look down on the hill. And there were only 3 of them, weren't there? Well, now, the last government, last governments, seem to me to have created a society where the very wealthy don't even look at the rest of us. The rich look down on the fairly rich. The educated look down on the uneducated. The people with a job look down on the people who haven't. And lo and behold, the people who haven't have only got a piece of card that they can go to the shops with to buy things. But they can look down on the asylum seekers because they also have a different coloured card and they have to go with their card to certain shops. There's a lovely poem by Jackie Kay about how wonderful it would be if you could go to, with your little card, to a shop that sold all the foods that you would like to be able to cook and eat, as opposed to the horrible stuff that the English eat. And they can't, they can only go and get tiny bags of rice from the co-op and see what they can do with that. Long before I came to live in Northumberland, I've been here for well over 50 years and love it. I lived in Zambia for 11 years, very, very happy years. And I learned an awful lot about hospitality when I was in Zambia. It was a perfectly straightforward thing. A man in the middle of the bush with his own house. If a stranger came in the middle of... What have I done? If a stranger came in the middle of the night and asked for help, he had to give him his bed and he had to give him food. It was just what he did. It was an automatic, that's how human beings behave. Once I've learned that, my whole life had to be different.
Just persevere when it'll sort itself out. It's a mystery.
It's a mystery, yeah. It's had to be different. Which is why 2 young men who were thrown out of their housing in the snow because their asylum applications had been turned down, had nowhere else to live, so they came and lived with me for a while. And food certainly mattered a lot to them. I had a lot of ruined pans, but never mind. They fed me as well. They were lovely. And one of them is the most outstanding cricketer. And one day he'll be, well, watch the England cricket team if you really want to understand this country. When I was in London in the 60s, West Indian children were coming in droves. And I watched them in the playground, because as teachers you had to go out and watch people in the playground. and their skills were absolutely extraordinary, with a little piece of stick against the wall. And I said to, I happened to know Mike, really? Yes, he was at school with my husband. And he came to visit us in Africa. And I told him about these kids. And I said, I expect to see those in the England cricket team very, very soon. Well, we've now got one, Jeffrey Archer, haven't we? One black face in the England cricket team. We are a very, very conservative nation at times. However, we're also a very, very generous nation. The people of Hot Whistles turned to and gave a vast amount of stuff over one day to kit out a young man who had been given house in Hot Whistle. What he's done, however, is actually leave that house because he was so desperate to have a job. And so what he's been doing in Essex is, in this dreadful heat, he's been picking fruit for 12-hour shifts and earning money because he wanted a job. He has now no house, no home. Nobody in Essex will give him a house, so he's going to have to. We tried to persuade him, but no. He wants to work so much, but he's had this job and he's going to somehow survive. That's all.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. It seems to be very little understanding about the catch-22, that you can't apply for asylum unless you can't get here. You can't apply for asylum anywhere unless you get here illegally. And I get very frustrated that there seems to be, even in relatively mainstream press, there seems to be very little acknowledgement of this catch-22 and the possible situation which we've put people in. And I was very interested to hear your discussion of the description of the new term, the legal migrant. And I just wondered why you thought that was.
Yeah, the catch-22, as you put it, is a really good description. As Zara found out, you cannot claim asylum until you are here talking to the Home Office. So you've got to get here somewhere, and that's where the term legal comes in, because every asylum seeker here has broken the law, and they have to be here. There have been safe and legal routes for people claiming asylum and refugee status. The most famous one is the Home to Ukraine scheme, but there's also been the Afghan one as well. But like our capricious government, they called a halt on that at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and no new claims were going to be done. That was just a couple of weeks ago. So I don't know what the answer to the catch-22 is. I'm hopeful, because I am always hopeful, that the new negotiations with France, at least our leader is talking to the French about ways of tackling immigration in a way that suits the people with the loudest voices in our country, and hopefully there'll be a way of processing people differently, but it's an awful system, it really is.
Sharon, do you want to comment?
It was more about what to do in the future.
Yes,
It was. Yeah. I just have this dream of just like a world without borders. Birth rate in Europe is plummeting, and we've got these fantastically resourceful, energetic, intelligent people. You have to be intelligent to get here. You have to be brave. You have to be strong. So we've got all these people coming. And also there's huge areas of Europe, and I think, one thing I think is climate change is having a huge impact, and even if there was no war, with climate change, areas of the world are becoming uninhabitable. but other areas are becoming habitable, and I just think we need some imagination and some courage from our leaders to just be open and welcoming instead of this fearful attitude, because people won't stop coming. They will always come, and however much you close the borders, people will find a way round. They absolutely will. And I think we'll have a turbulent time, and then it'll settle, and and people will realise that actually people are bringing a huge amount of richness to our country, difference and interest, better food, definitely, different attitudes, and also integrating and just making a fantastic contribution. But it's just a turbulent time at the moment.
It's a transitionary period and evolutionary terms, really, isn't it?
I'll just add one. What would be the future picture of it? Imagine, I think you all remember the campuses the government built in Rwanda to send asylum seekers there. A lot of money was spent there, and 4 asylum seekers went there, and the money it stopped now. Imagine those campuses and that money was spent on the French border somewhere, and there's a campus office, home office, and people from home office working there. And while they're they can apply for asylum there, and while they're waiting for the decision, they can live on those campuses. So they're not on Rwanda; they're somewhere in France. They could negotiate that if they would want to. Really. So people are coming from France. They are crossing board there. Most of the people are coming from there. So if there would be a place where they could go with their little children, I can understand when single people, young people, they are risking their lives. All right, it's their life. Let them risk it. Well, it's not a good thing anyways. But people with little children, pregnant women, they are risking their lives to get here. I think they would think twice before doing that, if there would be a place where they could go and seek asylum. And while their case is processing, they could live in one of those campuses, one of those rooms. So that would be good. But I don't think that's going to happen.
Every British embassy.
Yeah.
So they don't have to go to France. Every British embassy should be doing this.
Exactly.
They used to.
Yes.
They used to, and they used to have an office with the British Home Office characters in Calais. I mean, that's only a few years ago.
Was that before Brexit?
Oh, it was before Brexit. It was before. It was before Cameron, I think. No, Cameron was around. But very recently.
There's a question at the back.
Yeah, just thinking that if the debate could change given the prospect of 16-year-olds having the vote going forward, maybe it's an opportunity that we need to influence young people. A lot of asylum seekers are young people as well, and maybe nationally there's an opportunity to put together an education programme that can go into schools and fit the curriculum. Because, I mean, it's here, it's that, movement of people is not going away, and I've worked in community work with refugees, asylum seekers, migrants, going back when I worked for the YMYWCAs for the Vietnamese boat people, then the Sutu during the Civil War, and then with the Polish economic crisis and people moving through into Austria, massive by the thousands, hundreds of thousands of Polish people migrating to Austria, but people don't realise, forget about these incidents, and the response is the same. We have to have an initial crisis response, but we have to have a long-term vision of how we can change attitudes, influence cultural change, and economic and political policy in particular. So maybe
I don't know how we can move that forward from Tynedale Transformed, but maybe it's something we can look with the World Transformed agenda to look at education and young people who are getting the vote at the next election.
Thank you. Are there any other questions there?
Positive now. Regenerative.
Could you put it close to your mouth because we really can't hear you, sorry. Yeah, put the mic close to your mouth, yeah. Because we can't.
Regenerative migration. It's something of the political, I suppose. Okay, so again I go back to, until you've got coherence, you can't get cohesion, and you can't get identity without cohesion. We need to be, how do we identify as British people? That's what we need to get to, and that's what the Reform Party tried to hammer home. So maybe climate change gives us an opportunity to do something different, positive, regeneration. It's a bit like the caveat story. I'm interested in tri-stone walling. We need to terrace a lot of English landscape for climate change, to regenerate and to improve our agriculture. So we get people, rather like the navvies, building canals, we could have people building terraces. Now, I'm sure Nigel Farage isn't going to get his Reform Party to start building terraces. He'd rather live in the city. But people who are migrants will probably take that challenge on. Building a new landscape, a landscape which will hopefully help us to mitigate climate change. So hopefully we would have a positive story to tell for the future. Sorry.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. Right, so we've got 5 minutes left. Has anybody got a pressing question? Otherwise, I'd like to ask the speakers just to, this is a terrible moment for speakers when they're asked to suggest one thing that we can take away with us, or just to make a general comment.
I just wanted to recommend a new television programme called Human, which is on BBC Two. I don't know if anyone's watched it. But there's been, well, you can watch it all on iPlayer anyway, but it's basically saying about the history of Homo sapiens, and with new technology they know an awful lot more about how our species developed. And basically, migration has been going on for, forever, yeah, so that's part of it. They know that because they can trace all the genetics and everything. And also, they think the reason we are such a successful species, so to have really been the dominant species in the world now, which we are, is because we are so good at working together and we learn from each other. So small groups of Homo sapiens going back 300,000 years, you welcomed another group of Homo sapiens because you could learn from them. So we saw that as positive then, learning of other groups of people. Didn't see them as enemies, we saw them as an advantage, as friends, and that's how we used to be. So we need to remember that. Anyway, Human on BBC Two.
Thank you. So, Sarah, is there anything, final comments? So you don't have to do the takeaway.
I remember, I watched that and I loved she just said we're friendly.
Yeah.
And I just thought that just sums it up, and I think that's what, we are, and that's like her, I think that is the key to being friendly. That's it.
Great, thank you.
Well, as a person who came here to seek asylum and got welcomed by British people, I can confirm you can be proud of yourself, and because majority people are very kind, very nice, amazing, and I learned to be a better version of myself just looking at you. Honestly, never thought about people who would need my help when I was living in Moscow, just rushing to work, coming back. Never thought about people who would need my help, but now I know if you can't help. You taught me to do this, so I'm very grateful to you. And you can be proud of yourself. And those people who are against saying bad things against those people who need their help. They are just misled. They are just generally, British people are always being, if we look at the history, always being kind, tolerant, and yes, you can be proud of it. So thank you very much.
I don't know what to say as the final word. I think compassion is the basis of humanity, and I think we need to remember that. And be brave, have those conversations, get to know your neighbours and talk to people on the street and spread the message that we are much stronger together.
So, thank you so much for coming. I'd like to make an observation. I really do thank the speakers very much, because I think we've visited every corner of this issue, and I think that's really important. And I think one of the key things to do is that we can lobby. We can lobby for change. We can support organisations that lobby for change. Policy is always a blunt instrument, and it's also reactive. And so, the need to win an election often guides the way that policy goes. But I think that we've got to change the discourse around this at a sort of national level. So, write your MP. Don't think that doesn't work or doesn't have any impact. If there's anything that you find particularly, that you want to comment on, write to him. Join lobbying organisations. But the key thing is, look at the way that Hexham responded to our Ukrainian refugees. They opened their homes. It was extraordinary, and that was a government-sanctioned initiative. Well, we can take matters into our own hands and do it to anybody. And so there's levels at which we can respond, and personally, we can change the discourse around demonising so-called migrants, because it's a collective term for people who are just like us in different circumstances. So thank you. So I'd really, please put your hands together for the panels. We had Sarah and Zara and Janet, so please do that. There's a retiring collection on the way out. It's your generosity that helps us to pay for the room. If you want another cup of tea. And we'll save up money to buy a new microphone, so it's So thank you so much, and we'll see you in this place again next year. But anybody who wants to look at the Hexham debates, they're slowly coming online. We've had a technical hitch, but basically there's recordings of all the Zoom meetings that happened earlier this year, and soon, when Andy's finished filming, this session will be up there too. So, and spend your money freely at the back as well. So, thank you so much. Thank you.